In most of this country, transgender people don't have explicit protections from discrimination.
What's happening? Trans is the new point on the arrow. Now trans are carrying that terrible load of being the next outcast to finally be accepted.
Welcome back, everyone. That was a clip from the documentary For They Know Not What They Do, exploring the intersection of religion, sexual orientation, and gender identity in America. You know, nonfiction storytelling is always a big part of the LGBTQ plus content that's being created out there. So joining me now, Sarah McBride, one of the subjects of the film, and she's also happens to be running for a state Senate seat in Delaware, and filmmaker Daniel Karslake, who directed this powerful documentary. A warm welcome to you both.
Thank you.
Thanks so much for having us.
Well, Daniel, let's start with you. Your documentary delves into the many ways that negative religious beliefs about gay people, mainly that they are sinful, can negatively impact LGBTQ lives and mental health. What surprised you about the project?
Well, this is the second film I've made on this topic, and I have to say that the biggest surprises are always how much I learned from these families. One of the families in this film is deeply conservative evangelical family, and as a gay man who grew up in the U.S., I'm used to feeling judgment and negativity from people I perceive who are in that community. But on the contrary, Rob and Linda Robertson were immediately lovely and welcoming and very, very giving in telling their story of their family and their son Ryan in particular. So that was a really lovely, pleasant surprise.
Fascinating. You know, Sarah, you are the heart of this documentary, and it traces your life and your coming out story from beginning to end, but it also traces your parents' journey, going from shock at your coming out, but eventually to being proud and accepting. Tell us about that narrative arc and how that experience may have made your family closer.
Well, this has definitely been a journey for our whole family. I always say I lucked out in the parent lottery. My parents are exceptionally compassionate, intelligent, loving people. But I also knew that my news would be difficult for them. When I came out, it was 2011. It was before what Time magazine dubbed the transgender tipping point. I knew that my parents would struggle with my news. I knew that they, like me, would fear discrimination and maybe even violence in me coming out. But I also knew that my parents would eventually get to a place where they wouldn't just accept me as their daughter, but celebrate us as a family, celebrate our diversity, celebrate the fact that we've been on this journey together and have come out stronger and closer. One of the most powerful things that I've been able to see is the power of parent voices in helping to bridge the empathy divide that exists in our country. And that's one of the reasons why I think this documentary is so powerful, because it allows people, no matter where they are in these conversations around LGBTQ equality, even if they can't understand what it feels like to be LGBTQ or trans in particular, they can understand the love of parents. They can understand how they might respond if their child came out. Yes, with a mixture of maybe confusion and fear, but also a desire to love and embrace. And that's been the journey of my parents, of my family. And today they are among the most incredible parent advocates for the LGBTQ community that I know.
And clearly that's a metaphor, if not an allegory, for the awakening that everyone's having right now. And I hope that Daniel's following you through this next stage as you're chasing your political dreams. You are running right now for a state Senate seat in Delaware. Did you ever worry about the idea that being transgender would hold you back? And if not, how has this played into moving forward with this candidacy?
Absolutely. Growing up in the 90s and the 2000s, there were very few examples of transgender people publicly who were succeeding in business or in politics or even really in the arts, for that matter, at that point in time. And growing up, it seemed like my dreams of living here in Delaware, of having a family, of pursuing a professional path that was fulfilling for me, that those seemed mutually exclusive with my identity as a trans person. And growing up reading the history books, as much comfort as I found in the social change that filled their pages, I also became very aware very quickly of the fact that no one like me had ever made it very far in those history books, at least no one who was out. And so for me, one of the most powerful things that I've been able to see over the last 10 years since coming out is the progress we've made in representation for trans people. People like Danica Rome getting elected in Virginia. And one of the things I've seen here in this community is that people judge one another on their merits, their skills, their goodness, their compassion, not on their identities. And that's what I've seen time and time again through this campaign, and why I'm excited to continue running it. And I'm very hopeful and optimistic that we'll win in November.
I suspect you have a lot of enthusiasm from the rainbow crowd. Daniel, you alluded to one of the most heartbreaking stories we watch in the documentary. It's the Robertson family story, the story of Linda and Rob, two evangelical Christians who struggle to do what they think is best for their son, who came out to them at the age of 12. Let's take a look.
And in this life, I don't ever expect to get over Brian's death. I expect that I just have to learn how to live with the truth of it.
Unintentionally, we taught Ryan to hate himself and believed that he was completely unacceptable to God.
Tell us more about how they're continuing in their son's legacy.
Yeah, so Rob and Linda really were trying to be the best parents they could. They had a church community that said, well, if your son is gay, then conversion therapy is the answer, and God can change him because being gay is a, quote, deal breaker for God. So that's the path they followed for their son, and it proved extremely destructive, not only to him, but to their whole family. So now what I so respect and love about what Rob and Linda are doing is they're being very public with their story, that they very clearly got it wrong, that they had the best of intentions and they felt like they were acting from love, but that conversion therapy in particular is really not only a violation of the human rights of the LGBTQ person, but it also is incredibly devastating and damaging to the human soul. And so they are using their pain, really, and their really sad story to make sure that hopefully other families don't follow in their footsteps, who are also well-meaning and loving, but making this really tragic mistake. So I have huge love and respect for what they are doing. They're very powerful advocates now for the LGBTQ community, and they're very much vocal within their own evangelical community, which is, of course, one of the communities that the LGBTQ equality movement has not really been able to pull over to their side, to our side, I should say, very well. So I think what they're doing is really powerful.
Well, let's look for signs of hope in all of this. And Sarah, we just lived through history, the highest court in the land deciding that under long-standing federal law, employers cannot discriminate against employees on the basis of sexual orientation or sexual identity. The first trans person involved in such a case. As a spokesperson for the Human Rights Campaign, how electrifying was it for you to hear the news?
It was an incredibly inspiring and hopeful moment, frankly, a surprising moment. It was much needed good news after years of attacks on the LGBTQ community by the Trump-Pence administration. It provides and perpetuates really life-saving protections for LGBTQ people in employment and lays the foundation for significant progress throughout daily life. For me, it reinforced the urgent need to elect Joe Biden in November so that we can have a president who will take that decision and build on it, pass the Equality Act so that LGBTQ people are clearly protected from discrimination throughout daily life across this country. But it was a moment of much needed joy and celebration in the community.
Well, we just have a few seconds left. I know there's a clip of you speaking at the Democratic National Convention. Can we see you again at this convention this year?
Well, I don't know what kind of convention we're going to have this year, whether it's going to be in person or virtual. But I'm here in Delaware fighting to make sure that we win up and down the ballot here in Delaware and make sure that I win in November. And that's my focus right now. That's my focus over the next several months. It's right here in this district.
Understood. Sarah, Daniel, thank you both so much for your work and for joining us. You can watch the documentary, For They Know Not What They Do, online by visiting firstrunfeatures.com and buying a virtual ticket to watch online. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Hi, everyone. George Stephanopoulos here. Thanks for checking out the ABC News YouTube channel. If you'd like to get more videos, show highlights, and watch live event coverage, click on the right over here to subscribe to our channel. And don't forget to download the ABC News app for breaking news alerts. Thanks for watching.